Hey, it's Andy here from Sheet Ready. In the last tutorial we learned all about formulas and functions. In this tutorial we're going to take a look at the 6 main charts available in Google Sheets. So this includes the line, area, column, bar, pie and XY scatter charts. I'll show you how to set them up and we'll look at some of their key features. Okay, the first thing we want to do is make some data for our charts. So down the bottom here, I'm just going to write data. This is a blank sheet and let's just put in something with some dates and some categories. I'm going to call this net worth. Great, now just to make it a little bit pretty so I can see my headings, going to throw in here alternating colors. As per a previous tutorial, here we go, makes it a little easier to see. So the first chart we want to make is a line chart. And to make the line chart, we can do one of two things. We can go select all of our data here, including our headings, and insert chart, or we can select our data and we can go to the ribbon and find the chart icon here, insert chart. Okay, so we can see straight away it's imported all of our data and it's taken each one of our headings here and it's brought them in as what they call a series. You can see the big one here is property in terms of the value, and there's some smaller ones down the bottom, our savings and our stocks. But everything seems to be working. We have our value out the side and we have our dates along the bottom. Now we can see here it has tried to give us a title and we probably don't want that title. So we can either double click on it and change it, or we can navigate into customize. I'm just going to change it directly. A couple of other things that could be useful when you look at the horizontal axis. If I scroll down, you can also change the font size. So perhaps we wanted to make that slightly smaller. Yep, we might do the same with the vertical axis as well. Let's have a look at the grid lines and the ticks. So Google will give you what it thinks that you want in terms of appearance, but you can actually add minor grid lines, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, these are the ticks which correspond with where you want your count to be, so that will tell us that that's every year, even though it's not labeled. The other thing that can come in handy is slant labels. So you can free up a little bit of visual space here. Sometimes this is quite good when you go 90, depending on how you want to present your chart, rather than have your labels horizontal. I'm just going to take them back. You can also give a label, see how we've got date down the bottom, that's fine. So we go into chart and axis titles and change the vertical axis title, which is unlabeled. Put in value here, dollars. You can see it all updates in real time. There we go. Now with the legend, we might like it positioned where it is, or we can choose the position. We can take it to the left, we can put it down the bottom, and again, it's quite customizable how we want to do that. If we don't want to see the grid lines, we can also turn them off. Major grid lines, minor grid lines, but we've kept our cross down the bottom as well. You can usually manipulate data by clicking on the elements of the charts as well. So in this case, we could double click on the series here and it will take us to that particular series without having to navigate through this menu system. And there we have the option of changing colors, changing the dash type, looking at line thickness as well. So you can make things stand out, you can customize them to how you want. You can also resize and reshape the chart according to your requirements. Right, so the next chart that we want to look at is an area chart. Now you can actually change the type of chart by selecting the chart type and selecting area, or you can go through the process of inserting it from scratch like we did before. In this case, I'm going to change it. Now what that's done is it's filled in the area under the lines with different colors. That's really the difference between an area and a line chart, but it has retained all of the other changes that we've made. So why don't we start this one from scratch? We already have our information selected. We're going to insert a chart. In this case, we're going to change it to an area chart. Okay, we'll just go with the normal area chart. The stacked one actually builds on top, so it's like adding them all, but we just want a standard area chart, meaning that the information can overlap if we need it to. Now it's gone and selected different colors for us. We may not like those colors, so we can double click on the element and we can change it according to our preferences. And we can make all the same changes we did before with the line chart when it comes to adding titles, changing titles, moving the legend around, and so on. So an area chart is very, very similar to a line chart in that you can compare similar data sets together. And in this case, it's perhaps a little bit easier to see visually just because of the different colors. Now, what would happen, for example, if we were to bring this property fund down? We might have two properties, we might sell one, or we might remortgage and use the finance for something else. So now we have an overlap in the charts, and you can see there that it does adjust the colors automatically, which I think is a pretty cool effect. The next chart is the column chart. Let's insert charts, go down to column chart. What you can see straight away is that this chart is doing something different, and to be honest, it's not particularly useful for this whole area of data. I think the line and the area and the XY scatter, which we haven't looked at, are more useful. Where this is more useful is if we're just looking at, say, a point in time. Let me delete this, and instead of selecting all of this up the top, let's just select a year. Say we'll call it our 2020 year, and we'll insert the column chart. Let's go with the column chart. Yep. So as a snapshot, this is much more useful. It still managed to find our headings at the top here, and this is our specific date, so we probably don't really even need that. What might be more useful is if we can apply the various names to the categories. So let's try and do that. Okay, so if we go into setup, what we'll need to do is add labels, and the label for our first one here, it's bringing in automatically from a 10. We actually want it to be savings. So let's change that now. We can select our range here as B3. Okay, and it's coming in as savings. We'll do that to all of them. Going to customize and legend, position auto. I don't think we need to show the legend because we've already labeled each item here. Like the previous example, we're going to change this as well. Net worth, snapshot, 2020. And there we go. Alright, so a bar chart, we can do the same sort of thing. We can select our year, perhaps we'll just do these 4 so that we're not getting that date involved. And we insert chart, select a bar chart, Similar to the area, you can stack things one on top of the other. In this case, I don't think that's particularly helpful. Let's just go with the standard bar chart. And it's identical to a column, except it's just coming across the page. It's horizontal, whereas a column chart is vertical. So I mentioned there about the stacking. Let's go back to our net worth snapshot, and we'll turn that into a column stacked. Right, so here we can see the percentage, if you like, of each type, and that label there for savings, you can't really see it because it's so small. If we were to move this down, you can start to see a little bit of blue there. Where this could be useful is just another way of showing year by year. Now we move into one of my favorite charts, the pie chart. This is also good when you just have one set of data that you want to have a look at rather than a whole list which is moving over time. So again, where this could be useful if you've got multiple dates of information, it's just a snapshot of a specific date. So let's have a look at it. Insert charts and go down here to the pie chart. Okay, something went a little bit haywire there. And what we need to do is to press switch rows and columns. And now it's found what we wanted. So if I hit this, it's going slice 4. Now it hasn't really worked out what our labels need to be. To do that, what we could do is we could put them in manually. So under pie chart, we can select under slice label, the value, the label itself, which in this case is the same, and that could be another way to present the data. I'm going to try and change the label by selecting a different range. Okay, I think it wants the entire range here. There we go. Alright, so if we go back to customize and under pie chart, we can take the label as the value. So in this case, we see what each slice is, and we have the value and the percentage there as well. Unfortunately, you can't see what's happening with this small one with our savings. We need more savings. We could add the legend to help with that. Just noticed though that in doing that, the other labels have disappeared, which is interesting. Previously we had a labeled legend, that's why. Let's go to auto labeled. Alright, so it looks like it's a bit of a compromise. And if I click on them, does it show? Let's turn this off and hover over the top of it. Select the chart. Okay. Alright, it's a bit annoying, but you can select the chart, hover over it, and then the information comes up. So perhaps a little bit of a limitation there with Google Sheets, but we've got our legend, we've got our values, and if we had have had a different, more comparable data set, let's add 50,000 to this amount. Let's add another 50,000 to this amount. Then you can see things are starting to take shape. And again, we can double click here. We can change this to net worth snapshot 2020. Finally, last but not least, let's have a look at the XY scatter. Select all of our data and insert chart. XY scatter. This might be useful for having a look at trends. It might also be useful more so for when you want to have a look at the point information that's more valuable to you than the line itself. You can, if you want to, you can do a line chart. So coming back into a line chart, we can go customize and then series, and we can apply to all series, and we can change the point size. So there we go. There's some different size options and we can make them really stand out. So I think in some ways I prefer this to the XY scatter because you get the best of both worlds. You get those large points and you also get the line. Alright, so the other thing we might do here is to get our snapshot for 2020, we might just set up a little mini chart down here. And now let's have a look at a pie chart. Savings, stocks, now we're missing one. We are missing our retirement fund. Is that because I didn't take the date? Let's have another look. It says that I'm missing out on E, so I'm going to add that into my range. Yeah, right, that looks a lot better. So let's change this to net worth snapshot 2020. And there, without really doing a whole lot of work at all, I have an interesting net worth chart and I have an interesting net worth snapshot. In terms of the way that we could present that information, we can tighten all of this up. We can reduce our columns and we can show this a little bit flatter if we want. Great. Something else we might do visually is make this a bit bigger. We'll turn off the grid lines. And the other thing we could do is we could just put these charts on separate pages. So we can copy this, go Control C, come into my new page, Control V, got a nice big page here. I can call this net worth line chart. We'll add another one and we'll call it net worth snapshot pie chart. I'm just pressing Control C. Right, now we can see those labels a little bit more clearly. Okay, I'm going to use a command we haven't used so far, VLOOKUP. And this works when you have something that's ascending like what we do. And the value that we're looking for is going to be something that we match in here. So let's just highlight this cell and we're going to say if A17, comma, and our range is this entire table. So we're looking for this value within this table and it will look first in the left-hand column and it'll scan down one at a time in ascending order until it finds the value, which in this case is here. And then it'll return column number 2, which is this value, 57,000. Excellent. Now what I can do is to fix the references of those cells. I'll fix the A so that the column doesn't move. I'll fix the cell range itself so it doesn't move. And then I'll move this, I'll copy this formula across. Now unfortunately with VLOOKUP you still have to manually edit the column reference. So I'll edit that. Now you might ask, well, why did I do that? Why would I want to do that? The reason is I can then change, let's override this manually to pick any year that we want. So 1st of the 1st, 2017. And there's our snapshot in our chart automatically updated. So that's very powerful. Something else we might do is we can use data validation, which we haven't looked at yet either. And we can give ourselves a drop down here. We can say data validation, and we add a rule that what we're looking for here is drop down from a range, and the range is this range here. Now some people like the look of this with the button. I'm just going to advanced options, just show that with an arrow, and done. And let's get rid of that. We'll soften the color a little bit. Great. So now we have all of our dates up here that we can select. So 2021, you can see it's updating. 2015, you can see it's updating. I'll drag this slightly to our right so that we can see the full year. To be fair, we probably could have just put in 2014, 2015, etc. without 1st of the 1st, but there we go. If you like these videos, please remember to like and subscribe. In our next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create your own budget template. We're going to do it all from scratch using the different techniques that we've been looking at so far in these basic tutorials. And at the end of it, we're going to have something that's customizable for our use and that's actually usable. Bye for now.